Hey everyone, GC Smith here, and I'm really excited to be bringing this video to you today. I have never done a boss guide for bosses in World of Warcraft before, so hopefully I'll be able to do this boss justice and give you guys the right information to deal with this boss when it goes live. Now, I just want to start off this video by saying that anything in this video is currently from the PTR and is entirely possible to be subject to change, so it's entirely possible this video guide will not be viable when it goes live. Though, knowing Blizzard, fights don't really change too much. It's generally more numbers that matter and change, especially with a fight like this. It is super well designed and I can't see much being changed from the PTR to live. So that being said, let's get right into how we deal with this boss. The Iron Reaver is the second boss you'll encounter in the Hellfire Citadel raid instance, and it is a beautifully created fight that tests a raid's ability to follow the first rule of raiding: don't stand in the fire. It is a two-phase fight, with the phases shifting periodically based on his energy bar going up to full, at which point he'll enter phase 2, which seems to last for a couple of minutes, and then the phase will end, shifting back to phase 1. The fight will periodically change between phase 1 and 2 based on the energy bar, and not anything else. Basically, the ability to kill this encounter is how well you're able to deal with the individual phases and not get too overwhelmed with the leftovers of the phase 2 mechanics when it goes back into phase 1. So let's start with phase 1, and I think the first mechanic people will want to deal with, because hey, it's a World of Warcraft raid fight, which means there's going to be a tank switching mechanic. And of course, this one is a little bit more interesting actually than usual. Normally it's a debuff applied to a tank that forces you to tank swap due to, increased damage taken, or a dot that just gets too extreme if it stacks up. This one is a little more interesting. Periodically, the boss will place a debuff called Artillery on the main tank, which will force the tank to move away from the raid. Once a debuff goes down to 0 and falls off, the boss will fire an artillery round at that tank, dealing a ridiculously large amount of damage to both the tank and anyone immediately around him. This is a really large area effect, about 20 yards or so the tank will need to get at least 20 yards away from any other players. This is a stupidly large amount of damage and will probably need your tank's active mitigation up at any individual point, though I don't think it will need a exceptionally large cooldown use. The fight also encourages other players to stay spread out for pretty much the entire fight anyway, due to an ability called Unstable Orbs. This ability, basically the boss fires projectiles at random players periodically, dealing damage to them and any nearby players. This damage actually can stack, so if multiple players are grouped up together and 2 or 3 of them all get hit by the Unstable Orbs, they'll all share the damage, and it can build up to pretty insane damage fairly quickly. So obviously you want to be spread around 10 yards away from each other or 5 yards away from each other, but you don't really want to be too far away for another mechanic that comes up I'll talk about next, which is pounding. Pounding, the boss will periodically start slamming the floor, doing a large amount of AoE damage to the entire raid. These are similar mechanics to other bosses that I've had before. XT Deconstructor from Ulduar is a prime example for anyone that ever raided Ulduar back in the time with his Tantrum ability. This ability is pretty much like that. A more recent example would be the Tantrum mechanic actually from Beastlord Darmak in the Blackrock Foundry. It's a large amount of raid damage that you want to be able to heal through. And obviously, I guess, grouping up will allow you to do more AoE heals, so you don't want to be too far apart from each other from spreading for Unstable Orbs to be able to get together quickly so you can heal through pounding. Another reason, however, to stay kind of spread apart is his ability called Immolation. Again, periodically, the boss will fire this out as a projectile, setting patches of fire to different parts of the room. These patches burn for approximately about half of phase 1 or half a phase, so maybe 100 seconds or so before they disappear. At least they didn't seem to be staying for too long in the fight when we were testing it, as you should be able to see in the video. But running through these fires does put a dot on you that you really don't want to have stack up. So it's best to avoid the fires, obviously, as any raider should know, to the best of your ability. Now, there is one mechanic that you absolutely must avoid, everyone in the fight needs to avoid, and that ability is Barrage. about twice a fight, or 3 times a phase, sorry, in phase 1, the boss will periodically stop and start charging this ability called Barrage. You'll see a cast bar appear. And when this cast bar is full, or the cast time is completed, the boss will release a large conal, or at least frontal kind of ability that sets a large amount of patch of fire in front of him, so I guess counters immolation patches, but also does an extreme amount of damage, pretty much one-shotting even the tanks if they're in front of him. This is a mechanic you need to avoid. This is the kind of, if you screw up on this, you're dead, you are dead, and the raid ain't going to be very happy for you to do it. Now, actually, my favourite mechanic of Phase 1 is his last mechanic, and that is Blitz. Pretty much, I call this Falcon Punch, because when he blitz, you'll see a small cast bar, at which he'll charge up a massive fist and rocket launch across the arena. Everyone caught in his path takes a certain amount of damage, and he does this Blitz ability twice per phase 1, although he does it twice in succession each time he uses it. So about 50% energy, or 50% of his energy bar filled, he will blitz, which includes 2 casts. He'll blitz across the arena once and blitz across the arena again, and then about 100 energy he'll blitz again just before he takes to the air. The second phase, obviously, therefore, is the air phase. Now, he does keep some abilities from phase 1 in this phase. He keeps the immolation ability and the artillery ability, so he will keep placing fires around the arena, and he will also choose players randomly, I think, for this time for the artillery. The player which gets artillery obviously has to run away from the raid, or he does a large amount of AoE damage to nearby players. Note, however, in the air phase, the artillery does 50% less damage. I guess because of all the craziness of this phase, it's going to be really hard to stay spread out and heal and deal with this phase's total mechanics. The phase adds 3 new mechanics going in. And the first one is he places bombs all over the, periodically at least places a number of bombs into the arena that I guess scales with the number of people. Now, in Heroic, at least, the bombs seem to need to have 250k health, and will have a, the bomb time counter they've been using recently, I think, since Warlords of Draenor or since Miss Pandaria. In that time, before it finishes its cast time, players are going to want to kill these bombs because they seem to do a large amount of damage, like 100k raid-wide damage, and set up more immolation patches. And you really want to have as few immolation patches in this phase of the fight as possible because of the boss's second mechanic, which he will spray these streaks of fuel that are sticky and a slow movement, but can be ignited by any immolation patches they come in contact with. Now, since phase 1 puts immolation pretty much everywhere in the arena, these are guaranteed to be ignited. And he seems to do this about 3 or 4 times in this phase. So there's going to be a lot of fire. Though, hopefully, I think from what I saw, the immolation patches again, because they only last for about 100 seconds or so, as you get more of them, the first set should be disappearing, clearing up more room for your raid. And then his last ability of this phase, or the last of his new abilities, is Slam. From what I saw, he only seemed to do this at the very end of the phase, at which this large circle will be marked out in an area, and he'll slam down in that area, dealing large amounts of damage to anyone in that area, at which point he'll resume phase 1. Something to note in phase 2 is he does fly above the arena, so he doesn't need to be tanked. Especially, it didn't seem to be he needed to be tanked. He randomly chose who he was targeting, or randomly just flew over the place, placing fuel streaks and bombs everywhere. But he does take 95% less damage as a result. Really, phase 2 is simply all about avoiding the fire and destroying the bombs. You really don't want any bombs when it comes back to phase 1 because, having to try and focus on killing the bombs while avoiding both Blitz and Barrage and artillery and pounding, dealing with all that, it's going to build up fairly quickly. This fight is really chaotic, really fun, and absolutely a joy to play. So, if you want the too long, didn't listen version of this fight, Phase 1, avoid being hit by his Barrage frontal ability. Tanks, when you get artillery, run out of the raid and tank switch until the artillery is blown up around you, and then you can run back and take control of the boss again. Pounding, group up when he starts pounding the arena, but stay spread out the rest of the time so you don't spread AoE damage due to unstable orbs, and you don't end up having multiple players end up standing in immolation patches when they appear. Phase 2, avoid the fire, destroy the bombs, don't get hit when he streaks field everywhere, and don't get hit by a slam at the end of the phase. It is a very fun encounter, and something which I believe if we'd had a little bit more time to test and the boss wasn't given a ridiculous amount of health for testing purposes, that we probably would have got a lot further in. So yeah, hopefully this video was informative to you guys. If you got any recommendations for how I should do these kind of videos in future, or any editing I should do when I remake this video at a later date if I have to for the PTR, and I probably will actually want to redo this when it goes live due to some sloppy talking or scripting. So yeah, let me know of anything else you want me to change about this kind of video. Tell me what I did right or wrong. Any good comments or criticisms in the comments below is really appreciated. If you want to see more of these videos as I get to test more bosses in the PTR, don't forget to like and subscribe and show all your support, because I actually absolutely would love to give you guys more of these boss guide videos. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.